Before this video begins, I would just like to thank my Asbantium level patron, Fowlon Cortez. Thank you for supporting the channel. We all know Doctor Who, that loud, action-packed, brash and unapologetic show catapulting its characters through time and space. It's been going on for decades now, and ever since 2005 it has entertained millennial, Gen Z and even Gen Alpha kids across the world. Their first exposure to genres like horror or intense thriller mysteries. But I've found, as I've grown older and reached the ripe, frail old age of 26, I've come to appreciate a different era of Doctor Who. One I have no nostalgic bias for, but one just as good, if not better, than the modern era that got me into the show to begin with. Classic Who is the foundation of Doctor Who, with a 26 season run full of ups and downs, introducing pretty much everything you ever need to know about the show. And whilst fans often debate which is better or superior, I just think Classic Who is so damn cozy.
I just think they're neat.
Sometimes you just want something a bit easy to watch, and Classic Who is perfect for that. After all, let's look at one of the biggest criticisms of modern Doctor Who, for example, the storylines. Ever since 2005, Doctor Who has created a lot of series-long arcs, or even multi-series arcs with a lot of moving parts. I mean, just look at the 11th Doctor era and how interconnected everything is. This isn't to say modern Who can't be cozy. There are loads of episodes you can just throw on during your lunch or a chill evening watch. You're often reminded how not self-contained these episodes can be. Classic Who, on the other hand, revels in self-contained simple stories. Rather than being episodes in the modern sense, Classic Who is full of serials, featuring multiple 25 or sometimes 45-minute episodes making up an often movie-length story. And most of the time, you can just watch these serials in complete isolation. There are no real lasting consequences in the best way possible. It nails that idea of the protagonist just bouncing through time and getting into misadventures, without falling into the modern trap of needing to build to some spectacular, interconnected finale paying everything off. Once the Doctor and their companions have wrapped up their adventure in a setting, it's all done, and it's time to leave. Which makes these serials just so damn cozy and accessible. Even the companion departures tend to have a classical simplicity to them. Outside of the traumatic endings of Katarina and Adric, more often than not, the companions just decide they have something or someone worth leaving for. The departures aren't some big world-ending event or hugely dramatic and emotional climax of a storyline. It's just friends departing because the time has come to move on with their lives. And there's a sweet, reassuring honesty about that. Another benefit is how relatively low stakes everything tends to be. Modern Doctor Who often finds itself settling on the same ideas of the universe ending with huge consequences and massive stakes to every adventure, even the mid-series ones. And sure, Classic Who can still have giant world-ending threats, or in cases like Logopolis, half the universe being destroyed. But a lot of the time, the stories are lower stakes about megalomaniacs, evil computers, even things like mining disputes and shrinking down to fight a mind parasite, or simply just shrinking down and vibing in general. It harkens back to a simpler time of television, with cliffhangers being overly dramatic zoom-ins on the Doctor's face, or him climbing over a literal cliff edge for no reason. I kid, of course, he was actually trying to climb down to the ledge, only to realise he couldn't, but they just don't make that clear. There is actually an attempt at explaining it there, but they just didn't do it enough, which is why we have this infamous moment. There's a real sincerity in the stories of Classic Who, whether it's a story of claustrophobic, shape-shifting horror, or a whimsical journey through colourful worlds, it's always just honest and upfront, for better or for worse. Even something like The Happiness Patrol, a scathing critique of Thatcherism, has a charm and low-stakes appeal. It's not about saving the universe from a fleet of hyper-death robots. It's about inspiring an oppressed planet to rise up against its insincerely colourful and forced happy regime, complete with a silly-looking maniacal villain in The Candyman. There's a self-awareness Classic Who uses to its benefit with stories like this. It's slow and it's simple, but it knows when to treat things with honesty and sincerity, and also when to be a bit playful. There's such a variety and a nice selection that you can find coziness anywhere you look in Classic Who. A lot of people often criticise the pacing of Classic Who, since when you watch the serials all at once, it's like putting on a whole movie with just advert breaks every 25 minutes. But I actually think the slower pacing just adds more to this coziness and sincerity of everything. You get to spend more time in a setting, soaking up the worlds and cultures in which we find ourselves. Things build up slower and more methodically, rather than the episodes burning 100 miles per hour ahead at every turn, dragging us along at a breathless speed and then finishing in the blink of an eye. I won't make the obvious joke there. Get your minds out the gutter. With those lower stakes, Classic Who stories can linger on their narratives and the world building. We spend so much more time in each of these locations, and the cliffhangers help to serve as markers, progressing things and giving us reasons to care throughout. It just presents you with an accessible, honest and focused story you can dive into, while you can also just put your feet up. It's like a fine wine. You don't chug it from the bottle on a rager. You decanter it, you smell its aroma, you savour the taste. I don't actually drink wine, but I just know that's what people do, so the analogy still works. Classic Who and New Who are very different shows, sharing a name and an identity, but not a format or media culture. And I think over time, that has actually just made Classic Who so much more cozier and easier to appreciate because of how it takes its time and rarely rushes to the finish line. It takes a slower, more pleasant and endearing road. I'm not here to say it's better per se, it's just a different style, and an approach that gives it such a refreshingly slow and quaint, cozy vibe. Yes, count the amount of times I say cozy in this video. I mean, it's in the title, so I gotta say it more than once. It just makes sense. Don't judge me. I think the greatest benefit of these longer, slower stories is the effect it has on TARDIS teams. A severe problem I've had with modern Doctor Who over the last few years specifically is how little downtime there is to show the main characters just kind of chilling together in the TARDIS and actually spending time together as friends. But Classic Who has this in spades. So many stories open with the characters just hanging out, or companions in their bedrooms. Yes, they had TARDIS bedrooms because they spent the whole time there, it just made sense to. This gives you time to get to know these companions. You better understand their relationships with each other and with the Doctor. With more time, bigger TARDIS teams are possible because there's actually time for them to become distinct. Again, that's not saying Classic Who is intrinsically better than modern Who. That's not the point of this video. No companion in Classic Who is absolutely perfect. You still get Susan, whose whole role is just to twist her ankle and scream. That's literally all she is there. I'm not saying that she's better than any modern companions just because there's 3 of them. What I do mean is that by spending so much more downtime with characters or entire collectives like UNIT, which as an aside begins to feel a bit like a family because they have their own unique dynamics. You know, the Brigadier, Benton, Yates, Joe Grant and the Third Doctor all have wonderful moments of interplay and it feels so personal and real. Oh, and also we can't forget Liz Shaw, absolute queen, we stan her, she slays. At times, UNIT is almost like a sitcom, honestly, seeing the same characters entering a set and chatting to each other, with some characters more silly than others, but at the end of the day, they always come together to save the world, like you know they will do. And also the 5th Doctor's companions feel like a family as well. 5 is like a tired, frustrated single dad doing his best with the bratty Adric, who bickers with his sisters Nissa and Tegan. Thanks to there being so much more time in individual stories, these relationships and dynamics thrive all the more and become so much more cozy and more relatable. Again, it's perfect for that kind of cozy nighttime viewing, seeing these engaging characters getting into scrapes on wobbly sets. There's an amazing charm to it. Yes, it's time to address the cardboard elephant on the set: the effects. Classic Who is often mocked and derided for its cheap effects, even for the time. And yes, it was never exactly cutting edge and has its fair share of silly visuals, like, you know, unconvincing giant rats running around the sewers. But I personally think that nowadays, this works in favour of Classic Who's sense of cosy accessibility. You can mock the effects and be completely valid for it, but you can also freely engage with its earnest attempts at being entertaining and visually rich. 60s Who has such an incredible atmosphere with its lack of colour. It transports you back to the winter nights of families crowding around their small TV to meet the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Ice Warriors, all these now iconic monsters. Nowadays, it's less terrifying and more quaint, but that simply adds a new dimension to things. When you watch Classic Who in the big 2025, you know you're not exactly watching a visionary piece of cinema. That doesn't stop it being a very beautiful looking show with its own unique appeal. Something that became almost like a time capsule, highlighting older, different styles of budget production and filmmaking. It's impressive how so many distinct alien worlds can be created with cardboard backboards, intricate oil paintings and fog machines. It's actually incredible just how much Doctor Who could do on such a limited budget. And again, that leads to a wonderful atmosphere and sense of comfort you can't really get in the modern show because there's just so much beauty in the simplicity. Very silly set or goofy costume, there's something that will make you kind of perk up and go, how the hell did they manage to pull that off? Even when there's some absurd neck chop death, there's a stuntman flinging himself off the edge of a quarry, all for your enjoyment. So when you can look beyond the obvious moments of easy mockery, you can see just how much care and love went into making Classic Who. Something that comes across with that sheer cozy quality it can now have, despite how outdated a lot of it looks and feels. I mean, you know, they really went hard on CSO and green screen when they couldn't quite pull it off. Sometimes you find yourself in a dilemma, whether it's a hot summer evening where you just want to spread out on the sofa and just vent out the heat, or a cold winter night where you want to wrap yourself in a warm blanket and drink a hot drink. You still come back to the idea of, what do I watch? You don't want something too intensive because you're just not feeling it. So what's something you can always rely on? Classic Doctor Who. The vibes of Classic Who are just so impeccable. It's perfectly cozy and reliable as a light TV show you can throw on at any time. There's such a homely charm to it, like there is with a lot of 60s, 70s and 80s sci-fi, or even TV of that era in general. The effects, the storylines, the characters, none of these need to be overly elaborate or realistic to make Classic Who so enjoyable. With all the dark, serious or realistic TV these days, something like Classic Who becomes so lovably quaint and simple, and I don't mean that in a passive-aggressive, patronizing way. It's genuinely good TV. You can put it on at any time and just enjoy it for what it is. You don't have to follow loads of plot threads or analyze character dynamics if you don't want to. It's earnest and upfront with its intentions to entertain, and even all these years later, it's still so entertaining and engaging to watch. There's a homely sense of life to all these TARDIS teams with their family dynamics, or the Doctor being a grumpy, authoritative yet whimsical and charming eccentric traveller. Are the effects a work of art? Of course not. Are the stories always some incredible masterpiece of storytelling? No. Is the show something comfortable and cozy to watch like Pokemon Advance Challenge? Absolutely. And I love that. As I've grown older, I've been able to overlook the obvious played out mockery of Classic Who and appreciate it for what it is. Sincere, genuine and entertaining sci-fi you can enjoy in so many ways. It can be funny, it can be scary, it can be mysterious, it can just do anything, but it can especially be something you can just throw on and lose yourself in. And that's just beautiful to me. Despite everything, it's charmingly timeless, as all good family-oriented media should be. But that's enough heatwave-induced rambling from me at 2 in the morning when I'm not melting alive and the only time I can record this. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching, and if you want me to talk about more Classic Who, give me some ideas. I'm always down to things. I'm not doing reviews anymore, but I'm happy to do video essays like this. So, just let me know in the comments. Give me free ideas so I can rest my old noggin. There's not much going on there. I need the breaks. But yes, as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. And I'd just like to thank my Asbantium level patron, Fallon Cortez, my Diamond level patrons, That One Sleep No More fan and Valtar, my Platinum level patron, Matthew Burns, and all my Gold level patrons, Chris Douglas, Daniel Shillito, and James Alayula Waterhouse. Thank you for supporting the channel.